Battlefront players, this is Rogue Wolf signing in. Alongside with my co-host Commander Wolf, we'll be bringing you some tips and tricks on how to play the objective in Starfighter Assault. We'll show you a very basic yet very effective strategy to be more successful when you go on objective run. So, you clicked on a beginner's guide to Starfighter Assault in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Maybe you just picked up the game on a sale, or maybe through one of the many subscription services like Origin or EA Access that feature Battlefront 2 in their catalogs. You happen to find you like Starfighter combat, but you have a hard time competing with veteran players? Or maybe you played since the beta, but you're a trooper or HVV main and barely play Starfighter because you're just, well, not very good at it? You've come to the right place. Playing the objective is actually the easiest way to not suck in Starfighter Assault. And it happens to be a very quick and simple way to get those battle points for a hero ship. If you want to tackle these milestones, for example, for the trophies, or if you in general just want to play as a hero ship more often. By following a very simple strategy, you will be much more successful in space combat. But before we get into it, I promised enough battle points for a hero ship in under 90 seconds in the video description. Well, that's kinda clickbaity, I know. So, let me prove to you that what we are going to teach you will actually work. Let's take a closer look at the Rylot footage that was rolling in the background. Let's roll it back and play it again. Alright, Commander Wolf, that's probably kind of boring, so let's actually speed this up a little.
3, 2, 1.
Alright, so there you have it, enough battle points for a hero ship in just under 90 seconds. So the description wasn't that clickbaity after all, right? And just by playing the objective, and in fact it should have been at least 500 battle points more, because just like in Galactic Assault, you get an additional 500 battle points for every objective that is taken down. But while you simply have to be alive when the objective is capped in GA, in Starfighter Assault you actually have to contribute to its takedown to get the points. And while I do very much agree with this approach, that's unfortunately one of the very few design flaws in Starfighter. Quite often the point attribution bugs out and you don't get the bonus points even when you actually destroy most of it. I think I put enough work into both tractor beam generators, but be that as it may, to come back to our topic, yes, you basically have to fly in a circle near the targets to play the objective effectively in Starfighter Assault. It's as simple as that. All you really have to do is fly in this very small area, rotate near the objective whenever you can, just fly and turn as fast as you can and have your heals ready. It doesn't hurt to equip star cards, they give bonus hull strength. Also some damage buffs will come in very handy, they will make your attacks even more effective, but we'll get into more detail about star cards just a little later in the video. So yes, not only will this strategy net you a ton of battle points, it actually does help you win a lot of matches too. It will even put you up on the top spots on the leaderboard. I mean, look at it. At this stage in the Rylot match, I had 1 kill and ranked first on my team and 3rd overall. That's one of the many things that make Starfighter Assault such a great mode. Playing the objective is actually very rewarding and well balanced when it comes to battle point distribution. I wish they'd do something similar to Galactic Assault, but that's another topic. But you may say, well, that was a bad team, I always get shot down straight away, how did no one from the enemy shoot you down? I mean, they should have, right? Yes, they should have, but they didn't. Give it a try, guys, you'll see it works more often than not. Let's grab still here to illustrate why this is so effective in Starfighter Assault. The spawns in this mode are laid out in straight lines towards the objective. So typically your enemy players will fly straight to the objective. They disperse when they encounter enemies, in this case your allies, who are not doing what you do. That means less attention for you. Also, you are much harder to keep up with if you gravitate fast in a smaller area. Enemies will have to match your speed and direction if they want to chase you, and at the very least they will have to make an effort by finding a good angle on you, which usually will require them to get some distance on you. And, you know, just like in real life, people are lazy and will go for the easier target, and that's the people on your team who fly straight towards the objective, pass it by and then turn around for another pass. That's the worst you can do in this mode, by the way, go back and forth in a more or less straight line towards the objective, and you should avoid it whenever you can. Sometimes you can't, but whenever you can, you should. And here's why. When you finish your first pass and turn around for a second approach, you usually have the enemy team spawning in your back, like you see in the illustration here. And while they make their way towards you, they have all the time in the world to line you up until they come in firing range, while you are actually very distracted by shooting at the objective. So avoid that when you can. Also, phase 1 on Ryloth, the footage that I showed you at the beginning of the video, actually isn't the best to do this objective circling. There's very little cover, and half of the cover there is actually the objective you have to shoot at, and it gets even worse when the Threat Venator gets destroyed. But there's plenty of similar objectives in Starfighter Assault, and quite often you can actually fly inside a ship or a similar object in an area where the enemy can only shoot you from one direction. That's on Fondor Phase 2, for example, or the first phase of Unknown Regions. And Unknown Regions is actually the best for this because there's no way someone's gonna make the effort to actually chase you inside the Star Destroyer. Also, they might crash while doing so, which can happen to you too, of course, but it's worth it. And while you're at it, don't forget to shoot the turrets when you don't have an angle on the generators. That's 3 bonus points. I'll admit this takes some practice though. Refine quarters, shooting an objective, turn around, that's probably a lot of things to focus on for a beginner, but with some practice you'll make it with ease more and more. Just be patient. Like they say in the game, not everyone is born a Port Emerald, but you'll get there. So to summarize, first, gravitate in a small area near the objective. If there's cover, even better. Second, avoid flying in a straight line towards the objective, where you'll end up with enemies spawning in your back. Alright, so much for now on this basic strategy on how to play the objective in Starfighter Assault. Before we finish this little tutorial off with some star card recommendations, it's time for 2 little disclaimers. First, well, to all you ace pilots, I'm not saying this is the fastest way in the game to earn battle points. Shooting turrets, for example, can be very effective too, but personally I think that's rather boring and it doesn't do much for the team. But, you know, for simplicity's sake, I'm focusing on playing the objective in this one. If you shoot down a turret, like I mentioned earlier, along the way, that doesn't hurt, of course. And secondly, playing the objective obviously has a lot more angles and depths to it than what I just showed you. I mean, we haven't even talked about playing the objective as the defenders, for example. But in my opinion, the mode actually does a very good job of communicating what you have to do as the defensive team. An enemy wave of bombers spawns in, well, go hunt them down like the announcer tells you to. It's a ton of bonus points for playing the objective. Pesky rebel cruisers attack, well, help take them out. You can circle them as well, by the way. Also, some objectives actually require more refined strategies, obviously, like attacking on Endor or Dakar is not as simple, but that's for another video. In fact, I already have a future Starfighter tutorial drafted with more advanced techniques and approaches for exactly this, so yeah, stay tuned guys. Well, hey, this actually might be a very natural moment for once to remind you to subscribe to my channel without, you know, sounding like a broken record. But yeah, we do actually have a ton of stuff planned for the future. Starfighter Assault Top 5 plays, for example, Starfighter community logs, and much more. Unfortunately, this awesome game mode is equally neglected by content creators and the developers, so our main goal is to promote and teach the mode to new players. So yeah, please do hit that subscribe button and YouTube will ring the bell for you when all this new Starfighter stuff goes up on my channel.
Together, brothers! Fight as one!
Thank you. Okay, with this out of the way, let's actually finish off this little tutorial with a quick look at what star cards will make my little strategy of circling near the objective more effective for you. Alright, let's talk about star card loadouts. This is not a full-blown star card tutorial, we will focus on those cards that will actually make a difference when you play the objective. Though I think for the most part the star cards I mentioned in this tutorial are generally those I personally use in-game. I rarely switch them out, and if I do, it's very situational. Before we jump in, let's give you a quick introduction on how to read the two info boxes you see on screen. The upper left box represents the main cards I recommend for the class highlighted in the heading. Currently, the box contains the main cards I recommend for the fighter class ships. The info box secondary alternative cards either stores star cards you can switch out by personal preference or mentions cards you can use when you don't have access to all star cards yet because you haven't unlocked them yet. There are subtle differences between the ships within one class, mostly because the middle abilities are of a different quality and usefulness. The iron turret for the Y-wing bombers is a very powerful ability, for example. It is replaced with multi-missiles on the droid and TIE bombers. That ability is, well, not so great, which means I'll switch out weapon systems for another card whenever I fly a TIE bomber, for example. Whenever it makes sense to do such a class-specific switch out, I'll mention it within the guide. As I think many of our viewers will be beginners, I will touch on two different scenarios for every class. Full access, that means you have all star cards unlocked, or partial unlock, you are still in the process of leveling up the unit mentioned. Alright, let's get to it. First, you can't modify your ships with a different ability with a star card. While you can, for example, use an ability card to replace the Assault's scan dart with the toughen up ability, there are no ability star cards in Starfighter Assault. You can't replace, say, laser barrage with iron cannon. That would be cool though. All star cards you can equip are actually boost cards. That means they will either improve one of the Unit 3 abilities or alter the general stats of the ships. For all ships in the fighter class I usually go repair systems, weapon systems and tuned lasers. In general I find the star cards for the fighter class a little underwhelming. The fighter is intended as a jack of all trades, solid health, speed, turn rate and damage output. It's meant to be viable for both dogfighting and inflicting damage to an objective. When I started playing Starfighter Assault it was my go-to class. And in many situations the fighter class will be a good choice for a beginner pilot. Unfortunately, the star cards available for the class keep the middle ground mentality. You can't really specialize the fighter class to a certain playstyle. Still, for a focus on objective play, these are the star cards that will make your next run more effective. Repair systems is in my opinion the most important star card for the fighter class. Unfortunately, it's one of the last unlocks. It will reduce the delay before your ship's health regens down to 4 seconds on purple or epic rarity. If you circle the tractor beam generators on Riot, for example, this will come in very handy. Like I showed you at the very beginning of the video, you do of course take the occasional shot when enemies pass by the area of the tractor beams before they engage someone else. Repair systems probably kept my run going multiple times during these 90 seconds. As an alternative, you can switch out repair systems for a reinforced hull. This is particularly useful if you can't circle an objective and have to inflict damage, get shot down and respawn for another run. You'll simply get more shots off before you get destroyed. I usually use reinforced hull on the last phase on Endor, for example. Reinforced hull is also very early on luck and you can use it as a beginner. Weapon systems will improve the fighter's middle ability. In the case of the TIE fighter, that's the laser barrage that will receive a damage buff. The laser barrage is a pretty good ability as it is. With the damage buff by weapon systems, it becomes even more deadly. Weapon systems also is a must for my favorite fighter class ship, the aggressive reconnaissance 170 Starfighter. It will increase the damage output for the turret gunner. At purple it will make a huge difference. Your turret gunner actually becomes an offensive threat to both objectives and enemies pursuing you. Tuned lasers will make your standard lasers deal more damage to the objective. While it might only be a small damage increase, especially on the early upgrades, it still adds up over time. It's a must star card for the fighter class in my opinion. Advanced torpedoes and defensive upgrade are good alternatives for a partial unlock for beginners. You should replace them with tuned lasers in repair systems as soon as you unlock them though. Alright, next up the Interceptors. Typically you would think that the Interceptor class is designed as a dogfighter for ship-to-ship combat. But with the right star cards, the Interceptor actually is a powerhouse for playing the objective. It's my most used class by far, as it actually puts out a ton of damage with its weapons, and that's what you want for an objective run in Starfighter Assault. Deal maximum damage in a small span of the typical life before you have to respawn. For this very reason, I usually go max damage when it comes to star cards for the Interceptor class. Fire Control Cycler improves the primary laser's fire rate. That means you will get a lot more shots off in a smaller time frame, ideal for hit and run on an objective. Your weapon also overheats faster, so it's important to wait for the right moment to unleash your fire on the objective. I wouldn't recommend this star card for a beginner in a dogfight, as your aim has to be on point. You can't line up an enemy ship by using your laser tracks. But that isn't a problem when shooting at an objective. They are pretty hard to miss, even if you fly for the very first time. Next up is tuned lasers, another damage buff. In combination you shoot faster and deal more damage. Perfect match. As is advanced capacitors, which you should have equipped at all times. It's a must star card when it's available. It will reduce weapon heat, which means you can shoot your lasers longer before they overheat. If you manage your weapon's heat by bursts of tap firing, you should rarely find yourself in a situation where you can't shoot your weapon because your lasers overheated. This loadout is my standard loadout whenever I fly an A-Wing. When I fly a V-Wing or a Tri-Fighter, I will usually switch out tuned lasers for offensive upgrade. Offensive upgrade will increase the heat sink's active time. Your primary lasers won't overheat while the ability is active. Particularly the Tri-Fighter deals out an insane amount of damage once paired with Fire Control Cycler, which is the reason why it is my favorite darkside interceptor. For the first order TIE Interceptor, I usually switch out tuned lasers for Interceptor weapon systems. The TIE SF Interceptor is a two-seater with a turret gunner. When you equip the weapon system star card, the turret's damage output will increase by 40% on purple epic rarity. This is particularly useful for playing the objective, as you don't have to face the target to inflict damage to it. Think of it as an iron bot with a timer. For a partial unlock for beginners, offensive upgrade and weapon systems are generally good choices before you unlock Control Cycler. You could also increase the turn rate with Elite Pilot, but personally I'm not a fan of this card. Popular belief is it will help you win dogfights or break a circle when you are being chased. In my opinion, there's much more effective ways to break out of a circle pursuit. I will touch on it in a future video, and Elite Pilot doesn't exactly make your Interceptor easier to fly as a beginner. Personally, I never use it. Well, maybe that's a good point for another disclaimer. This is all my personal preference. It's what I use, and for this tutorial I focused on the star cards that make my little strategy of circling the objective more effective. Do let me know if you disagree in the comments and leave suggestions for a different loadout. Thank you. And last but not least, the Bomber class. Very often, the Bomber is your go-to class for an objective run. It is the most durable among the three Starfighter classes, with the highest health pool and the strongest damage output. Its lasers are very resistant to weapon heat. With the right star card, it often feels like you can shoot your primary lasers limitless. The Bomber's missiles and torpedoes also deal the highest damage of all classes. The downside is its lower speed and maneuverability. In theory, that makes the class easy prey for Interceptor and fighters. Most of the times that is true, with the exception of the Y-Wing Bomber, which in my opinion can stand its ground against most regular classes, especially if you react fast enough and have some distance on your enemy. There is two star cards that I use for all bombers in the game. Tuned lasers to increase the primary laser damage output. Advanced capacitors is a must for every class, like I mentioned. When you equip it on a bomber ship, there is a very good chance you will be shot down before your lasers overheat. For the Y-Wing Bomber, I pair these two with weapon systems. It improves the Y-Wing's middle ability, the infamous Iron Cannon turret. Some think this ability is a little overpowered. I don't agree, it's fine in my opinion. Instead of nerfing a very good ability and probably render it useless in the process, I'd rather see DICE improve the other two bombers. The Iron Cannon turret, without a doubt, is a very powerful ability. It fires at the locked target, and while it only causes a rather low damage output, it also slows down the target significantly. With weapon systems equipped as your third star cards, your Iron Cannon can be active for a full 10 seconds on epic rarity. If you keep the enemy in sight and land your shots, it's pretty much a certain death for your opponent, because the stun effect will last all through the full 10 seconds at least. For the TIE and Hyena class bombers, I switch out offensive upgrade. I'm not a fan of the multi-missiles these two bombers unload with their middle ability, because, yes, the multi-missiles cause a lot of damage when they hit one target, which, unfortunately, they rarely do. Because unlike the regular torpedoes or missiles, you can't fire them without a lock. When you double tap the regular missile or torpedo ability, you can fire them without a lock on, and they will fly in a straight line in the general flight direction of your starfighter. Unfortunately, you can't do that with the multi-missiles. They auto-lock on, and very often they lock on random enemy fighters instead of targeting the objective. Something that definitely could use a change in my opinion, but that's for another video. For the TIE and Hyena class bombers, I use defensive upgrade instead of the offensive upgrade. It will keep the electronic countermeasures active for a longer duration. The electronic countermeasures prevents enemy missiles from locking onto you, and it removes the targeting circle. This makes you a much harder target, especially at range. It's a good ability, but not as strong as the Y-Wing's ion turret. If you haven't unlocked all star cards for the bomber yet, I recommend reinforced hull to make your bomber even more durable, and advanced torpedoes. It's not particularly strong, but it's definitely more of an upgrade than its respective counterpart for the fighter class, simply because the bomber's torpedoes are stronger in general. Alright pilots, that's a wrap for this Starfighter guide. I hope what we explained in this tutorial will make your objective runs on the battlefronts in space more effective. Do leave a like if you enjoyed the guides, leave a dislike if you didn't, that's not a problem at all. On this channel we try to teach and promote Starfighter Assault to new players. So yeah, I don't know, maybe you have any wishes or questions or any suggestions for future videos? If so, please do leave a comment down below. YouTube is kind of a wasteland for Starfighter Assault content, and we are here to help change that. Would you be interested in hero ship guides, for example? That's something I've been considering for a while now. If that's something you'd be interested in, please do let me know. Please don't forget to subscribe so YouTube can ring the bell for you when new Starfighter content goes up on my channel. Thank you for your support, guys! Also, since you like Starfighter Assault, be sure to check out the channel of my friend and squadmate DS1813. He holds many killstreak world records, while also avoiding the typically shady tactics to farm a killstreak. Watch his gameplay videos, guys. I'm sure you can learn a thing or two just from watching him play the game at this level. Alright, thanks again for watching this video. This is Rogue Wolf signing out for today. See you in the next one.